and good afternoon. Welcome back to our studio for another episode in our e-commerce world review. Now, today we are looking at the Growth 3000. So this is our index that looks across all of Europe and takes those retailers that are just below the top 1,000 and considers the growth vectors for those businesses. So to say that this year has been an interesting and turbulent one is the understatement of the day. But we're going to try and unpick some of the changes in the market and perhaps what the drivers of change have been and some of the opportunities. So before we dive in, a few housekeeping moments, which is if you've got any questions, just put them in to the question area. We'll try and cover as many as possible as we go through, but anything that we miss out, we'll try and follow up with you later. Secondly, our research is ongoing year-round. So even as we publish the 2021 version, we're already looking to 2022. So do let us know of any areas you would like us to focus on, whether it's new or you want us to go deeper. Drop us a note, research@retailx.net. Our minds are open and our fingers at the keyboard ready to add in those good suggestions. Well, that's it. Let us now progress. So we have a very lovely gathering to discuss the report today. Martin, who heads the research team and is behind all of the good work, Imran from Attract, and Habib from Ingenico. So rather than the pictures, let's have a quick welcome to the studio, gentlemen. Tell everyone who you are. Habib, why don't you start us off? Who are you? And a bit about Ingenico and Worldline, please.
Yes, hi. Thanks, Ian. Hi, everyone. So my name's Habib Ansari, and I head up the UK e-payments team for Ingenico Worldline. Ingenico was acquired by a company called Worldline towards the back end of last year, and it was very much a merger of two big PSPs, payment service providers. And with that acquisition, Worldline now is the biggest PSP in Europe, and I believe the fourth largest in the world. So we provide payment services, payment solutions, right from your card payment machines straight through to financial services and online payments.
But you're not a customer-facing brand. So like some of our other partners, whether it's the PayPals and Klarnas of the world, they're very visible in the customer's face. You're kind of a bit more humble behind the scenes and hidden. So just how the PSP fits in from the moment the customer's at the basket. What does the PSP offer there?
Absolutely. So yeah, it's correct. We are behind the scenes, and we're not kind of regarded as being part of the the most important role within the checkout flow, but we are one of the most important roles because our merchants do all the hard work in getting the traffic, getting their customers right to the end of their journey, and they need the payment service provider to make sure that they offer the right payment methods to make the transaction, have good stable solutions, and also very much focus on the acceptance rates of transactions. So we are right at the end of the journey, but we play an important part.
The power behind the throne. And of course, Habib, you're going to share with us some of the facts you've collected behind the scenes that will inform our discussions. And of course, I always have to give credit to Ingenico because it was over a lunch with you guys that we decided to focus on this growth sector and create initially the UK Growth 2000, which we then extended to be a pan-European index. So again, behind the scenes, I have to give you credit. I think it's in our agreement, but again, thank you to you and the team for your work. So you are the unsung heroes making sure the transaction lands. But meanwhile, Imran, you're at the front end of the funnel, going from interest to sales. So tell us who you are and a bit about Attract as well, please.
Yeah, sure. So, Imran Chowdhury, work from Attract. We're the AI engine behind discovery, and discovery can mean lots of different things, but if you boil it down to, say, search, merchandise, and personalization, that's probably the easiest way to view of it. We are a leader in this area across Europe. The majority of our customer base is UK and Europe. We power, I would say, some of those challenger brands. So the growth report is quite interesting because we generally find that that's where the new challenges are starting to emerge. But some of our customers are some of those challenges from, you could say, the past in some respects. So the ASOS, the PLT, so the Pretty Little Things, as well as the Superdries. So they're some of our largest customers. And I guess for us, digging into the growth segment helps us start to understand where the next challenges are that we can start to support in their next stage of growth.
Interesting. Thank you, Imran. And I think one of the things that we found in this sector in particular is one of the reasons we call it the growth sector is because the availability of software as a service, things you sign up to on a Monday, configure on a Tuesday, and are delivering you revenue by Friday. This kind of fleet of foot ability that technology and rapid deployment are offering means that this whole sector is just redolent with innovation and pace and speed. So it's fantastic. Now, pace and speed, Martin. Obviously, I turn to you. You worked on the report. Tell everyone who you are and a bit about the RetailX team of researchers.
Thank you, Ian. So I'm Martin Shaw, Head of Research at RetailX. My team and I identify, track, and benchmark retailers around the world, including the retailers behind the Growth 3000 report.
Great. Well, you're going to take us through the report now, and I should emphasize that the report itself is a pretty enormous undertaking. So behind the lovely cover, 3,000 retailers assessed and ranked. So I think what I'll do, Martin, is if I put you in charge, then you can take us through the report initially. I'll move the mouse, so you just tell me when you want to move on, and just give us some of the highlights, and then we'll discuss some of the implications of those as we go through. So why don't you just take us away there?
Perfect. I love the slide above my left shoulder. So with 3,000 is a lot of companies. You won't know them all, but when we produce these indices, what we're looking for is the largest retailers outside of the top 1,000 in Europe. So these companies are chosen based on their revenues, their stores, their web traffic, and their significance in those areas. And in terms of the ranking, only 30% of their ranking weighting comes from those size measures, with the remainder coming from performance metrics. And I'll go through a few of those in some slides.
Great.
Next.
Good. Let's go back to the next that I managed to show a second ago. There you go.
Brilliant. So this chart shows the number of retailers in each sector. It just gives you an idea of who the Growth 3000 are. More of the Growth 3000 are fashion stores than any other type of retail.
And again, Imran, this is something we were talking about, search and selection. If you're trying to sell clothing, as well as being the biggest in terms of the number of retailers, it's also one of the most difficult in terms of, their structured SKUs. You've got size, color variations. There's a whole issue that, you may have 20 similar products or, in a certain style. So finding your way through hundreds and hundreds of SKUs can be a bit of a nightmare. So just maybe give us a bit of insight to how we can blend the AI with that human touch. Because again, this is one of the things we've discussed before, and I think is particularly relevant from a fashion and style perspective.
Yeah, no, sure. So it's interesting because literally the other day I had this problem with a retailer. So I'm wearing a white T-shirt, and I just went on I'm not going to name them, but a major retailer's website. And I knew you'd probably try and ask. A major retailer's website, and I just typed in men's white T-shirt, and I think there was in the range of something like 1,200 white T-shirts that popped up. And I think for us as a society, with everything that's going on, we just don't have the brain capacity to go and look through that many T-shirts, especially when they all kind of look the same. So I think retailers have gone a little bit crazy with the whole dropship model and possibly offered too much choice. And too much choice obviously causes confusion and people just move on. So the one problem with that is relevance. So I think a lot of the work that we do is actually try and understand intent, try and understand preferences, so that what we're doing is promoting those items to the top of a search result or a product listing page, which we believe are more relevant to the behavior that we are seeing and is being exhibited to us in real time. And that doesn't have to be that the customer is logged in or known. We can do that from an anonymous state as well. And we're seeing a lot of improvement there in terms of click-through and conversion rate, just purely by letting an algorithm do some of that matching.
And what are the signals then? Because if you left me with 1,200 white T-shirts, there are only a couple of things I'd think of. I'd say, let me sort or filter by price. So, I'm not the guy that spends £150 on a white T-shirt, more like the £15. So I'd filter by price. Or I might want to filter by brand. But other than that, or maybe, ones that Imran has worn as an influencer, but I'm starting to run out now of attributes. So what are the additional indicators of my style preference that maybe either the AI or the algorithms might take into account to help me find relevance amidst those 1,200 items?
Well, I think it's also the behavior that you've shown before you even go to that search result. So what are the types of brands that you've been selecting on? So we can start to understand maybe brand preference and maybe where those brands sit in a tiering of prestige or value. I think there's also kind of things that we can start to see as to how you're navigating the site as well. So there's a lot of navigational things that we can identify based on your location, let alone just those simple things of what you're clicking from a facet perspective. I mean, even if you started to do those facets in terms of price, again, the volume of options are still pretty high. So some of the things that you might want to do if there is a low quality of us understanding your intent is maybe because you've literally just hit the site, let's say, there may be things that we can do around the algorithm around most trending, or weighting things such as trending against margin or estimated sell throughput. So there's those kind of things that we can do, again, to just try and improve the chances of you selecting something and putting it in your basket for Habib to then go and help you check out, and merchandisers, hitting their targets as well. The challenge is, though, when you've still got, one challenge is the relevance piece. The other challenge, though, is in order to be relevant, you kind of need to have your products tagged, enriched, and some of that mundane work that we don't all do because it is mundane and it's not classed as value add, but actually the value is it allows you to do the more relevance kind of at the long tail. And it's that mundane work where we see more of the AI automating and taking some of those tasks away from merchandisers so that they can focus on more creative control. So we're not one of those that says, just let the algorithm do everything. For us, it's a case of AI is very much around automating some of the mundane tasks, but allow you to have an enriched product set, enriched content, that then allows merchandisers to use algorithms underneath their control to be more relevant.
Great. Okay, that was lovely. Well, thank you for that, and covered off a lot of things that I think we may need to have a search merchant personalization session just to follow up on those. Martin, back to you, sir.
Thank you for that. So next slide. 4 of the assessments we have in the Growth 3000 are the Google Lighthouse ones. We have...
So tell us what Google Lighthouse is. Surely they aren't now guiding seafarers around dangerous coasts.
Okay, those involved in design and build of websites will be very familiar with these. In brief, they are assessments which help website builders to adopt best practice. In each area, they have 12 to 15 to 20 different metrics, different ways that brand that's building a website can improve it and make it more relevant to consumers, make it load faster, make it appear better in search results. So
all
it's
good
a
things.
benchmark.
All good things. So you've obviously been looking at these. So I'm looking at my eyes are sort of going a little bit. My astigmatism's kicked in here, Martin. So just tell us what we're looking at.
This chart shows sectors' relative average performance on 2 of the 4 Lighthouse assessments. Stationers and florists are best at accessibility, whereas multi-sector retailers could improve the most. If you have a look at them towards the bottom.
Mm.
In terms of SEO, there's very little variation across the sectors.
So that means we're in a world where everybody is pretty much optimized so we can give money to Google, optimize for Google, and get found by Google.
Yeah, and I think this sort of challenges perhaps the prevailing wisdom about some sectors focus more on SEO than others. You may recall there were 700 fashion brands within the Growth 3000, whereas there are only 20 perhaps health product manufacturers. But actually across the sectors, you see the same average scores on these things. So that either they're hitting a level where it's very hard to improve beyond that, and I think a lot of brands do have that, or we're seeing the competitive pressure applied elsewhere.
And is there a question here about the move by the Growth 3000 to using modern platforms? So these days, you don't have to do as much of the heavy lifting and handcrafting as you did before, because software as a service comes with a lot of these capabilities now baked in at a surprisingly high level. So is this maybe a sort of case of, a rising tide floats all boats, or is it a case of uniform wizardry and excellence across the sector?
I think it's clearly also the uniform wizardry across the sector, but I'd say it's primarily about the providers actually improving. So what we notice is jumps. Some years you see 20 percentage point improvement in a particular thing, like say a load time or time to interaction with a website, when you can first click on it, and it maps to the providers and the platforms introducing an update. So I think there's definitely a lot of that happening, but at the same time, you do see a lot of incremental improvement between those jumps, which is down to retailers getting in, opening up the bonnet, tweaking things, and making those improvements and checking their own assessments. If you run a Lighthouse assessment on your own website, you'll get very detailed results, And there's an overall score, but then it breaks it down into all the different segments. So there's a lot of ways to improve.
I can sense a lot of people firing up a spare browser to go and get Lighthouse now. But Habib, this must tie in with a lot of the emphasis you've had for a while on robust performance at scale. So I know that customers they're not interested in waiting ever, but they're definitely interested in waiting once they've been through the funnel and want to check out. So are you noticing either a pressure on speed and performance, or is it a case that you've been there already and you're now seeing it appreciated a bit more?
Yeah, it's a very important topic, very important to merchants and businesses. They're investing a lot of resource in making sure that the convenience element of a customer going onto a site, purchasing, is done very, very quickly. And there are solutions out there that will help to support that. But really, it's very much around stability. And stability is key because, as I alluded to earlier, merchants do a lot of work to get the customer to that point. And it's very important for us as a payment service provider to make sure that we are there when the payment request comes in. So it's something that we have been working on for many years now, and it's something that we talk to our customers about a lot, and it ties in with all the acceptance rates and etc.
Interesting. Well, look, we've talked about the funnel, so let's maybe now jump to the next thing, Martin, which was looking at the recommendations being made. So what did we find when we looked across the 3,000 this year?
So this is a year-on-year change, this chart. We're looking pre-pandemic, February 2020, to just last month, or month before last, sorry. So yeah, it's the change is that we see it's noticeably less popular this year, with declines of between 5 and 10 percentage points across most sectors. It's an interesting thing to observe. This tends to be something which we've noticed over the years has trended upwards. Naturally, we track hundreds of different metrics, and so here I've pulled out a few which in the next few slides, which have changed over the pandemic, and potentially in a way which might seem counterintuitive, or at least bucks the trend. And
well,
in this
it definitely seems both to me. So what's your understanding of why this would be? So the practical effect is I'm on, let's say, my favorite stationery website. I'm looking for, I don't know, some new ink cartridges. And now I look at the ink cartridges, I can buy them, but I'm not getting as many recommendations for, if you like this blue ink, you might like this blue-black ink as well. So it's a reduction in recommendation for other things. That's what we're seeing here. Am I correct?
Yes. So, and you'll notice it's across the board, across all sectors. So what we're seeing is potentially partly explained, I should say, by the fact that certain providers may have tweaked how these things are shown. So if you've got your software as a service set up and it changes how you're meant to now present similar products and input that data, then that could affect across the sectors, everyone using a particular platform or a particular integration. In terms of any other effect, it's not something that I'm going to hazard a guess at because, as you said, it is quite counterintuitive, and it's not something that I really have an answer for.
Perhaps you can
write in if you're one of the retailers that has made that.
Yeah, I was thinking, I'd love to know why. Imran, do you have any thoughts on why this might be? Is it perhaps, I mean, my initial thought was it would be a reduction in range due to availability, and perhaps a desire to say, look, if you're looking at it, just buy it. I don't want to distract you anymore. So is this maybe just a bit more sophistication about understanding where in the journey I am? I'm at the point of purchase, or is it stock, or is there something more cunning at play here we should understand?
I think, if we look at the report next year, we'll see if we kind of answer that question about it being a supply chain issue. But what I would say we're seeing more of a trend across our customers is, if you think of, let's say, that carousel isn't just being used for kind of, let's say, one rule or one type. So you may have the first and the second thumbnail as similar products, but the third, the fourth, and the fifth are to try and aid your discovery outside of that category. Based on what we know, that if someone's looked at that item, we know that actually there's a good chance, based on the data we've got, that they would be interested in this category or this item in a different category, or even this brand. So I think what we've seen is we've not stopped similar products. I think it's a case of that carousel that we're all used to on a product description page has become a little bit more mature in terms of we're giving a blend of different things that we're promoting. So it's not all similar. It's also there to try and aid discovery.
Right, that's a very good point. So once we've discovered, people seem to want to get their hands on it, Martin. So you've also drawn out some differences in the time to collection. So what are we seeing here?
So electronic appliance retailers at the bottom make orders available for collection the quickest. And the pandemic year has seen some changes in how quickly products are made available. So, but they're not uniform. So some sectors we see it's taking longer, some shorter. Of particular interest, though, I'd say in health, you can see retailers selling health-related products have shown a significant increase in speed, with the average company turning around products for collection a full day earlier than in February 2020. Obviously, certain stores have changed their function over the past year and repeatedly, and retailers have experimented with different ways to make use of collection, given that.
Yes, excellent. Okay, thank you for that. And let's look at mobile next then. And we're back to the Lighthouse scores. What are we looking at here?
So what we're looking at here is the two remaining Lighthouse scores. We've got the best practices, which covers a basket of advanced techniques and design principles that make websites for users better in across the board, while performance focuses on the factors that affect page render, load, and interaction times.
So again, it looks like the majority of people are doing the majority of the best practices, but only half of them are doing it as quickly as they might.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, DIY shops average towards the bottom on both measures, so there's some room for improvement there. But bookshops are strong in both. Interesting.
Okay, and some more of our yellow and taupe charts. This is about fast delivery. And again, it seems as if there's a bit of a pullback from the speedy delivery of February last year to the more realistic May this year. Is that right? Or is there something else at work here?
Yeah, this is actually something we've observed globally in most markets that we track. And pre-pandemic, we noticed it in collection. And collection, next day, same day collection was becoming less frequently offered. Since the pandemic, however, we've noticed that the trend for prompt deliveries, next day, same day deliveries, which had been climbing, has now reduced. And we suspect this is not a change in the overall long-term trend, or in the way that customer demand is making retailers shift their operations, but rather just a temporary blip, which is a response to the unprecedented jump in demand. We've had 100% or more increase in e-commerce sales, and the fulfillment services have been hard pressed to keep up with that.
Yes, unsurprising. Okay, and growth in third-party checkout. Now, we did ask Habib at the beginning about this difference. One of the things that strikes me about this is that a lot of these payment providers bring customers with them. And so they are a little bit like a subscription system. You're in the ecosystem. And so it's interesting to see the changes here. So how do you interpret this, Martin?
It's something which we've been tracking for a while, and the long-term trend is that these plugins are becoming more popular, with more retailers just adding them in as a matter of course. Though they almost always will still use their own checkout as well. It's still a niche thing, I would say. Though PayPal has maybe still less than a third of the Growth 3000 you can see here, and it's growing at a very small rate. The others have, to some degree, stabilized, at least over the last year, and we haven't seen too much growth in them.
Very interesting. Well, Martin, thank you for taking us through all of those. Imran, let me just put you on the spot and just ask, how do those points resonate with you? And, what's your view on the Growth 3000 sector?
Yes, I think it's probably a very good place to be, because you are starting generally without the legacy of an infrastructure, like some of the more longer term retailers. You're generally recruiting very much digitally first minded people. You don't have the potential legacy of real estate either. So from a retail perspective, it's a great time to be in the growth segment, especially during COVID, when the demand on the internet has possibly been one of the highest. I think the challenge though there is being able to scale. You start to grow very fast, and your ability to scale, to mature the knowledge base of your resource. How do you do that? And that's where we've been spending a lot more of our time in helping such retailers with best practice and with dare I say, with AI. Where can AI help facilitate, not take over, but facilitate and support, so that resource can be better aligned to those more value-added tasks and more creative tasks, which is what merchandisers are very good at and where they've got their knowledge, rather than some of the mundane things that kind of hold them back. Speed is...
that's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of our view. It's a great sector to be in, because you've kind of got a semi-clean sheet to go and play. The playing field is a bit more level, and as a new entrant, you can be a bit more disruptive because you don't have some of the legacy holding you back. The challenge is how you scale, and that's where we do feel we support with AI.
Great, and I think it's a nice change as well, that as more and more best practices baked in, it does relieve the time for your staff, committed talent, to spend time on making things distinctive and wonderful. So hopefully we'll see this as a glorious next phase in retail. Fingers are crossed anyway. Now, Habib, one of the reasons I want to put you on the spot this time is to take advantage of the fact that you see where all the money comes and goes. So maybe just talk us through just a couple of things that you've seen in the market from your sacks of money perspective.
Yeah, it's been very interesting over the course of the best part of 18 months, how we've seen things change, evolve, and also how the restrictions have impacted the behaviors of merchants and customers. So what we've certainly seen is an acceleration in e-commerce and digital payments. Imran touched on it. It's a very good time to be in this, because merchants are now and are looking into more and more developing their digitalization of payments, of their site strategy, etc. So they are able to kind of map out, draw what they want to achieve. And thankfully, we still had an increase in the actual market, where the market grew last year by single digit, but it still grew. So there is enough resilience in the industry for merchants to invest in their strategy. Unfortunately, we did see a fall in card present transactions, mainly driven by the restrictions. And also something we were talking about earlier around delivery. I think why the numbers are a little bit, whilst they are a little bit up and down, call it, it's because I think it's very much driven by the restrictions. And as the restrictions have eased, more and more companies have been able to offer things like click and collect. So that negates, obviously, the fulfillment companies being able to position the next day delivery, for example, because, customers can go and collect things as they were once able to before. So
you're
it's been
seeing,
interesting.
This obviously comes through with the increases as people as reopen. But you're saying that the pure online retailers have seen a slight decrease in transactions. Is that because now that we're all released, we can go and shuffle around the shops again?
Absolutely. It's something which is temporary. There are still behaviors out there that want to stay indoors and love the convenience element of having a one-click scenario to get their goods. But people have missed actually just going out and enjoying the day out with their friends, and going into shops and feeling the product before they buy it, and making a day out of it. So we are doing that, and it's impacted different verticals.
And so those are different verticals. Also, regionally, now we covered some aspect of this in our Italy country report webinar, where they're looking to get a very significant chunk of billions as part of the COVID recovery fund. But I think I could be wrong, so don't take this into, but I think it's about 50% of that is earmarked for improving the digital infrastructure in the country. So, whether it's 30 or 70, it's a big number. But again, that focus on the digital infrastructure to enable not just e-commerce, of course, but also things like digital health, tax reporting, government services, etc. So this regional thing is very, very interesting indeed.
Yeah, and it's good to see support is available. Support is out there. Yes, some may disagree to say, it's not quick enough. It's not helping that many businesses. But we're in a fortunate position where, for example, the European Commission is able to support SMEs with their strategy, looking at how they can improve, how they can sustain and support the business, so business carry on and don't fold. So it is good to see, and naturally it's across the world that we are seeing more and more support come in. But also at the same time, there is we feel that now there is more support to help your local businesses, to really get behind them. There is a lot of empathy there for us to work together collectively to make sure that the businesses are there. And
interestingly, with a lot of those local businesses, they are not just online or just offline, but we're seeing your local butcher. Shout out to Godfrey's and the local greengrocer. They now have click and collect, reservation, weekly newsletters. So they've come from very much grounded on the high street to digital, and then a lot of digital stores you didn't know, for example, that they were physically located near you, are now opening what used to be their office to be mini stores. So I think this blended approach of in the community but digitally amplified is perhaps a model that we can look at with hope, compared, on a day that we hear that Gap is closing stores. The high street is suffering a bit, but maybe there's a renaissance in the local and Growth 3000 sector. We're positive people. Let's hope that's true. So, Habib, thank you for that. Very interesting topics picked up there. Before we say goodbye, because our time is nearly up, it's passed so quickly, is there anything, just in a sentence or two, that we haven't covered or you wish we'd covered in more detail? So tell us either your key item or your regret. Imran, in a sentence, is there anything we've missed out?
It's probably joining with some of the things that Martin and Habib said earlier. So there was the stat around collections in store. And what, I guess, a bit of a tip, because we found a bit of a hack, you could call it, this year, especially with stores reopening. People open up order confirmation and order collection emails. The rate of opening is very high, probably more so than your normal email marketing. So one of the hacks that we've kind of, let's say, found this year is actually, the item that's been purchased and collected in store, and the store and the inventory available in store. Well, if you're clever, what you could do is pump in some recommendations into that order collection email based on what is in the store and goes with that item. And you never know, you might add a few more items to the basket when they're in the store.
And I'm sure that our German and French delegates on the call will be thinking, I'm not sure that's strictly in the definition of administrative messages under GDPR, but of course, that's not what we're saying. Habib, do you have anything that either a hack or something we should cover off in more detail?
Something very quickly, Ian, is around the evolution of payments, transaction processing, and the regulations, the new regulations that are actually coming in, because they add an active contribution to the success of payments. We're seeing a lot of change in that arena with PSD2, with new versions of 3D Secure, credential on file for recurring transactions. So, they're key points that will definitely shape up the UK payments landscape. We are seeing it already in Europe.
Great. Well, look, thank you for reminding me about that. And again, it just reminds me that it is about time we did a payment-specific webinar. So maybe let's put that as a marker for our autumn catch-up. Martin, what's next for the team then? So are there any changes that you're already planning for the Growth 3000 2022? Where's your focus going to be now that we've got this out to press?
Yeah, the focus is definitely on the path out of the pandemic. So we are looking at what changes have been made that will be maintained and what changes have been made that will instantly be rolled back. Looking from the consumer perspective, we have our RetailX European Consumer Observatory. And that tells us that most consumers who have changed how they shop want to stay shopping the way they are now. So I think the challenge for retailers is to take an extraordinary series of months where we've adapted very quickly and very well. In fact, that's definitely one of the things which comes out of this report. Retailers have from the outside seem to have coped extraordinarily well. Mm-hmm. To what degree can they make that a routine and something that gets baked into their business model?
Great. Well, look, I'm just taking positive things from this. And I think if you can cope and the customer likes what you've done while you're coping, then that's obviously a great opportunity to build further from that. So well, our time is up, so I would like to thank everybody for joining us in the studio on this issue within the e-commerce world review. So there are lots of other things going on. We've got 15 webinars this week looking at everything from our e-delivery to innovations to country reports, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, China. We're looking at live streaming, sustainability. I won't list it all because you can see it on the website, and you've got this far. So hopefully if there's anything else of interest to you, then you've already clicked and signed up for those. But again, we will be running e-commerce world review again in the autumn. So if there are topics you'd like us to cover off, if you want us to go deeper into something, or you didn't think something met your needs, now's the time to tell us. So research@retailx.net will get us all, and we would do look at all the inbound emails and take all the good ideas as if we'd thought of them ourselves. So thank you in advance for your questions and contributions there. But thank you now to Habib, Imran and Martin for their analysis and time today. And so, gentlemen, thank you. Thank everyone for watching, and we will now leave you to get back to the busy activity of trading and making your customers happy. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you on the next webinar.